And so now we're going to wade into the waters of the second sentence of the first chapter of the Didache. This isn't the entire sentence. It has some other sections. We are just going to go section by section. I'm going to put them all in one video. I think it makes more sense that way, but that will make this video slightly longer. Slightly is in air quotes there. As always, we're going to read through this. We'll give a rough translation, and then we'll talk about how the sentence is kind of fitting together. He men un hodos tes ζωῆς ἐστιν αὕτη. And so, the road or the path of life is this. Greek has a lot of these little words here, these kind of particles, that kind of connect the sentences to one another. So we had that first section that mentioned that there are two paths, one of life and one of death. And here, and also that there's a big difference between the two. And then we get this, and so this, they're beginning to talk about the path of life here. We came across this, the tes ζωῆς. This is linking, and so. Another word, though, that is, it's not harder to deal with, but it's a little more, it's actually slightly harder to translate. And this word here is paired with a word we already saw in the first sentence of this chapter, and it's usually paired up with a, I don't know if this is visible here. That's my attempt there at here, hold on. Let me write this so that we can, amen, and then there will be another sentence with a de. In my belief, I don't think we get the de actually until the 5th chapter, believe it or not. You could probably make some other arguments, but the way this is explained is that men will mean on the one hand, and then this de answers that on the other. I'm going to put up a little video after this one that draws from Apollodorus's The Library, which talks about a lot of the Greek myths. And I think that there's a good example there. It's kind of a funny one involving Zeus. So we'll talk about that a little more. But that's what this is doing. It's something that you could almost imagine, like we might communicate in English with a tone of voice. So anyway, I'm just going to leave that there. This is just setting us up. This is on the one hand. And we kind of know that because we know that there are two paths, right? Again, now, we talk about hodos here. Hodos is feminine nominative singular. And we know that because it gets this. This is the definite article, the feminine nominative singular definite article. Again, masculine in form, but when we use other words describing it, they have to be feminine. So that applies here. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. So the road, tes ζωῆς, we know from last time, this is feminine genitive singular. And I think we talked about how in English, we don't really say the path of the life. You know, that's a Greek usage. In English, we don't use the word the in such instances. And then here, in the former sentence, or in the sentence in the last video, we had ἀγαπησεις, which is the plural, the third person plural form of the verb to be, present active indicative. Here we have third person singular present active indicative. I just put all these words out here. This, Present means it's present tense, active voice, and indicative, meaning that it's stating a fact. We're not talking about a wish or a conjecture or some hypothetical situation. This last part here, ἀύτη, this is a demonstrative pronoun. This is also feminine, nominative, singular. If you looked it up in a dictionary, generally these are going to get listed. You'd have to look it up under hutos. Hutos would be masculine, nominative, singular. And then there's tuto for the neuter. I say accusative, so there was a neuter form as well. But the point here is, you could look it up under that. ἀύτη means this, and it means this as in something near. So I think here this isn't something maybe you could point to because it's going to be the sentence that, or the part of the sentence that follows. If it were a person or a thing, it would be something that would be relatively close by. And again, this is feminine, nominative, singular. We have to use the feminine pronoun with a noun that is masculine in form but is actually feminine. Πρῶτον ἀγαπησεις τον θεόν τον ποιήσαντά, δεύτερον τον πλησίον σου ως σεαυτόν. So here we get this word πρῶτον, and we'll also kind of look here. Δεύτερον. This word means first, and this means second. First. Now this is a future. This is the second person singular, future active indicative. You will love. So the ending here, you, and it's you will love τον θεόν, God. This is our masculine, accusative, singular. This is our definite article. And again, we don't, probably in English, we're not going to say you will love the God. You will love God. And then God is further described, τον ποιήσαντά. And we talked about this in the video on adjectives, how we can have a word, or when a word follows this definite article, we could describe it as being in the attributive position. So this is really an adjective describing God. This is a participle, and this is masculine, accusative, singular, aorist participle. That means that the participle is coming from, it's a past tense. And we'll talk more about participles as we go on. Participles are verbal adjectives. So it's not only God, it's God. And when in these cases, well, first we could just say it literally, the having made you, God. You will love the having made you, God. Or you will love God. And then often in English, we'll treat this as like a relative clause, who made you, and we'll translate this with like a finite verb. I hope again, just to say that more simply, you will love God who made you. This sag, going back to you here, but this is the this is accusative here. So the object of this participle. Now, the thing about participles is they are adjectives, but they have a verbal quality still. This comes from the word poieo, to make, like enarche poiesen ho theos. In the beginning, God made ton uranon kai tengain, the heaven and the earth. Secondly, and then this is kind of known as like an ellipsis or something. We have to understand this is going to be the object of this verb. They're just not saying it again. Secondly, and if we say it in English like this, and secondly, your neighbor as yourself, You could probably say that and leave it up to people. But again, because English isn't a case language, we rely on word order. We don't really know when we say your neighbor as yourself, like what the word your neighbor is doing. But here it's very clear. Ton plesíon is again masculine accusative singular. And we know accusative singulars are going to be objects of verbs, and we just had this one here. So it's pretty easy in Greek to understand that this is the object of the verb that came before. You will love ton plesíon. Plesio or plesios is neighbor. Here it's the neighbor, but here with this little word, this is a genitive singular. It means of you. You will love the neighbor of you, or maybe in English we would just say your neighbor. And then we get this little particle, hos, and it means as. It can sometimes mean that, but here, as, sεαυτόν. And this word here is reflexive. It means yourself. This is also, maybe not surprisingly at this point, accusative masculine, accusative singular. All of these are just objects here. You will love as, your neighbor as yourself. Okay, so now we've reached the final section of this sentence. I keep forgetting to say it. So in the last section there, we had this word sεαυτόν. And I keep forgetting to mention this punctuation mark. Greek punctuation is largely like that. In English, we get what we would call a period, which is a full stop. This here, it's a little raised. It's almost like the top part of a colon or a semicolon. It's giving us a, like a section break, but it's not a full sentence. Although it could be in English, because Greek sentences can be much longer. So just keep that in mind. There is another punctuation mark. If you see something that looks like a semicolon, that in Greek is an actual question mark. This would be a Greek question mark. And this would be kind of like a colon or a semicolon. Just keep that in mind. Or it could be, when we translate, it could be a period. So all the things, this is a neuter accusative plural. Neuter accusative plural. And I should say, and all the things which, we're just going to translate this as which, and this is also neuter accusative plural. All the things which, and this verb here is in the subjunctive, meaning it's not expressing a fact, it's sort of expressing a condition in this case. So we would want to identify this as second person singular, aorist, active, subjunctive. So that seems like a lot, but the main takeaway is that it's in the subjunctive mood. And what it's saying here is all the things which, this is alerting us. We're not actually going to translate this, except that it's, unless you want to think about it being subsumed by by a word like would or something. So all the things which you would want, so not that you did want or will want, but that you would want. And then here we get this word, may. This is a particle, and it just means not. Here it's going with the infinitive. An infinitive, I think we talked about, is like the to, to be. Here it could mean this verb, gignomai, means to be or to happen, maybe to become. So all the things which you would want not to happen, or to become for you. Or I think it's a little more natural in English, all the things which you would not want to happen to you. So we could just kind of switch that around a little bit to make it come out in English, sounding a little better. And this is our conjunction and, but in this case, we could probably translate it as even. Even you, or even, or maybe, I said even, but probably also would be better to understand it. Also, you, here's that may again, don't do to another. This is dative, this is masculine, dative singular. This form of the verb here, we haven't talked about. This is an imperative. If I could, imperative. This is second person singular imperative. Second, we'll just say singular imperative. This is where an accent, we haven't talked a lot about accents. This is where an accent makes a difference, because if you see poie, poie means he, she, or it is doing or does. Poie means, hey, you, do, make, something like that. Don't make, don't do to another. And this is the subject here, you. And actually in this case, you as the subject, you don't do. I don't know if we could understand that as, and hey, you don't do. I'm not sure. You know, it's a good question. Someone could write in and see if they could make a case that this is vocative. But this means you. So all together, one more time, more in English this time. All the things which, and all the things which you would not want to happen to you, also you, or you too, don't do to another.